I needed this break to appreciate what I had, because I was kind of mumbling that, oh, my job is boring. I do this for 13 years. I'm selling the same kind of stuff. I'm not inspired. I don't learn anything new. And now I would give everything to get it back, because I realized, how much I actually achieved to have that freedom, which I had. And that understanding is very valuable for me.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chat with Nomads. We will have with us today Ruta from Baltic Breeze Travel. And my assumption is that we're going to talk a bit about the digital nomad movement in the Baltics, how the travel scene has changed throughout the years, especially during the pandemic, and of course, how you actually tied through the pandemic with your travel business, right? So welcome to the show.
Hi, Rex. Thank you for inviting. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking time out to come on to talk about your experiences. So let's start with you telling us more about yourself. Like, how do you start, and how do you get into the digital nomad movement?
Okay, so I actually have my small travel company in the inbound travel. So I organize trips to the Baltic states and Scandinavia, and I started the company like 13 years ago. And so basically, I was always working remotely the moment I started. So I felt pretty sad and lonely at times, because I just was always alone and I didn't have any colleagues. So my remote work was mostly from home, and then I also had an office back in Lithuania. But then I realized that my business is really seasonal. So I have 5 months of intense work, and then, for instance, from October to New Year, it's usually not that much to do, and I could take it easy. But somehow it never came to my mind that I actually could go and travel somewhere. And then one year I decided that, okay, I'm gonna go to US, do a solo travel during November, December, and I really enjoyed it. And then I thought, like, wow, I should do it more often. And then actually my friend told me about a group called Wi-Fi Tribe, which is actually meant for digital nomads. And yeah, I applied, I became a member, and I started traveling with them, and I really loved that lifestyle. So I'm a member of Wi-Fi Tribe for like 4 years probably now. And yeah, it really got me. I enjoyed it a lot, and I started traveling with them. And afterwards, I also went to several co-livings, and then started traveling also with the friends that I met from this community. So like totally new world opened up for me. And that's how I got into this whole digital nomad world.
Nice. Let's go back to the start, right? You mentioned you started a travel company. Let's dive deeper into why do you start a travel company? Like, was travel always in your blood? Like you have, since young, you always wanted to travel, or what led you to decide to go for a travel company?
Yeah, so the story is like that I was always good at languages at school. And at the beginning, I wanted to be just a translator. But then I realized that, yeah, maybe it's not such a good career. And then I actually always liked traveling, because I traveled a lot with my school. Then with my music school, I did also exchange semester abroad. And I kind of always liked to connect with the foreigners, and just to see how it is outside Lithuania, basically. And I don't know, it just came to my mind like, okay, I'm good at languages, but I need to combine it with something else. And travel seemed to be like an interesting field for me. And that's how I started. So I basically studied tourism in my bachelor's degree. And then I started my company. And then after 4 years, I still studied master's in the tourism field. But the way I started my company was like, I actually never thought that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I thought like having your business is only for the rich. And so I worked initially like as a student already in one big inbound tour operator in Lithuania. And I started after, I think, second year of my bachelor degree. So I worked for one summer, then another summer, third summer, then they like invited me for good to be their employee. So I worked with them for a year. And then I started working with my friend who created a company. And the classical scenario happened where they say don't work with your best friends. So it kind of didn't work out. And just like randomly, I decided I can do it by myself. And I met like my ex-boyfriend at the time, who kind of saw my passion for travel, and he believed in me, and he said like, hey, I mean, I think you can do it by yourself, and let's start the company. And basically, yeah, we started the company together. And I think I only did it because I was young, so I really didn't know what I getting involved myself to, I just
Yeah.
went for it without too much thinking and without actually the exact picture what I'm going to do. So yeah, that was
That's
probably from being just young and enthusiastic.
that's nice though. I think we should always try things when we are young. I guess there's this mentality whereby there's this reverse mentality whereby when people just graduated, they want to go for something safe because like it's the safe path to building a future, right? And then there's maybe a fear of failure. So then a lot of people go for the safe path and then realize that the older you go, there's suddenly just more to lose. You know what I mean? Like the moment you build up a certain income stream and stuff, and you think about now that I have to maybe get a lower pay grade, or like I have to sacrifice more time and money to grow my own business, suddenly it becomes like harder. Whereas when you just graduated, I mean,
Mhm.
we are all poor students, so we just graduated, so it's not that much of a jump, right?
Yeah, it was totally, I agree totally with you, because like now when I think about it, if I would have to start something now, I already think, about the money I need, about all the actions I have to take, and then you start evaluating the risk, and it's somehow you're not so adventurous anymore as like 13 years ago. I was like, okay, who cares? Just do it. And I totally didn't think about like, actually I really didn't know what I'm gonna get, and what that's gonna be actually hard work. I just went for it because I was passionate about what I was doing, but I didn't calculate it anything like how much money do I need, that it's gonna be pretty stressful, a lot of work. So yeah, now if I would have to start everything all over again, I would probably think twice, because I know what it is to build a company.
Right, right. And I have to get back to this because you were saying just now, like, so you had the typical story of like you started with your best friend and then it didn't work out because most likely because of the friendship and stuff. And then but you then went to start a company with your ex-boyfriend or with your boyfriend
Yeah.
at that time. Doesn't sound too logical, but how is the thought process like?
Well, I think the difference was that basically he was not involved in the company, like he was not working there on daily basis. So he basically was a shareholder, but all
Mm,
the decisions were made by me, and all the I built up like all the product and everything. And I guess he was just supporting me mainly like financially, but also psychologically and morally, because he had his own business already and he kind of knew what it is. um, so yeah, and I think that's why it worked out, because I was the one who was doing the whole business, and if, I don't know if we would have been working together, it might have been totally a different story. But right now, travel wasn't even his field, so that totally didn't clash.
right, right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit more about what Baltic Travel does because I think that's important when we
Mhm.
dive into why you can go remote, right? Because my brother runs a travel company
Yeah.
inbound to Singapore, but obviously he can't really go as remote because he runs tours on the ground.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you were able to go remote almost like at the
Mhm.
start, right? So, and I think that's because your model is for tourism is a bit different. So tell us more a bit about what does Baltic Breeze Travel do.
Baltic Breeze Travel, yeah. So we do mainly actually music tours for groups, for choirs, orchestras, jazz bands, for all kind of musical groups. Usually they are coming from North America because that's a big market there. But I also work with UK, Germany, Scandinavia as well. So we organize the whole travel package. So basically, their accommodation, like their meals, excursions. But on top of that, we are arranging all the performances. So basically, finding the venue, uh, renting the instruments if they need to, setting up the concerts together with the local groups, doing the master classes with local composers. And basically the core of this type of traveling is more a concert for the client. They want a successful concert. They want to have like a full house. And then the travel stuff is coming as secondary. So basically, if the concerts are successful, then they are happy with the tour. Usually that's how it is. And yeah, a lot of people ask me like, so are you able to do it remote? But like I am arranging everything online, but I never go with these groups. I have like professional tour guides that are managing them for me while they are traveling. And that's why I'm able to do it, basically, because I don't have to be present, because like there is a person who is working under my name when the group is on the ground, and that's working out perfectly fine. But of course, like initially when I started it, I thought that I have to be present because of the whole, pressure, and because of the willingness to have a perfect service. So I thought I have to be on the spot, but then I realized that actually, no, I can, delegate the tasks and it can still function without me. And later on, I hired some people who were working more as an operation managers, and they were taking care of all the operational stuff while the group is on tour. So that even took off all this burden from me, let's say, on the operational side. And I was more focusing on just finding clients and being present for the clients, creating new product rather than operating the whole tour. So that allowed me to basically go remote and travel.
Okay. But do you have to build, when you build the relationships at first with like the bands and the music groups, was that, do you have to do it physically, or was it more still remotely communications and stuff? Because you started the company like 10 plus years ago, right? So back then,
yeah.
obviously remote communication and Zoom and stuff wasn't like as big of a thing.
No, so I work mainly B2B. So I work with other tour operators abroad. So I'm not selling my product directly. And I would just go to certain travel shows where, I meet all my clients, or I would go to their offices. So for instance, I would fly to US and just meet the client there. But it is like a 3-4 day thing, and then you're done. So I think like actually, when you work in this kind of business, especially B2B, your relationship with the client is very important, that they have trust in you, because when you operate the tour, that you also operate in their name. So they kind of trust in you that you will make it a success. So it's important to meet them, and it's important to build a relationship with them. But you don't have to be, you just go and meet them maybe twice a year, and that's okay.
Got it. And do you have issues with so when the tour runs, right? And because it's mainly in the Baltics, as I understand, so it's like European time zone. Is that a concern for you when you travel, whereby you try and limit your travel destinations to somewhere of at least a suitable time zone? So in case any shit happens during the event at the time, that you are there to handle it?
Yeah, that's for sure. I always try to be in the European time zone when the group is traveling, because definitely things are happening, and because you're working with people, and a lot of stuff is unpredictable. So I'm receiving quite a bit of calls, and that's for sure helping me to be in European time zone. But it's working out very nicely, because most of my groups travel in spring and summer, and spring and summer is a great time to be in Europe. So never a problem, Yeah.
Right,
And also
right.
I like summer in Lithuania, so I also tend to spend summers there. So that's even more convenient.
Okay. And so when you travel, what kind of guides your travel planning? Do you choose nature? Do you go for events, or do you just, try and work it around based off your work stuff?
You mean myself when
Yeah,
I
as a
travel?
personal
Oh,
travel.
okay. I think I like a mix of things. I realized that actually I like to be in a city, but I also like to have an access to the beach, for instance, and I also have an access to the nature, which is not far from the city where I live. So I tend to choose destinations where I have all these things. I know that I could not be living far away from the city because I just like, cultural life. I like to go and see concerts. I like to go socialize with my friends in cafes and bars. So I cannot be just somewhere remote in the nature. So I prefer to live in the town, in the city. And then, yeah, if it has an access to the beach, perfect, because I just love water and I always want to be close to it. And then if it also the nature, if it's not far away, that's also perfect. So I think I base my decision on, what's there to do in a destination. So.
Seems like you want a lot though, because it's like you want the city and the beach and then also the nature.
Yeah, maybe that's how it sounds, but I think it's not so difficult. For instance, to find these cities like let's say, Barcelona has it all what I want, or for instance, Tel Aviv also, it's a great city, it's by the beach. Cape Town has everything, beach, mountain city. So I think there are plenty of choices. It's not that I'm, super picky. I don't mind to be a month just in the nature, but I know that if I don't get an access to a city life and culture within a month, I'm becoming a bit of a how to say, like locked up. I feel locked up.
Right.
Yeah.
You were, and this is something interesting because when we met, you were saying that Cape Town really captured your heart for some reason, right? What do you think is the elements? Because I know that obviously there are these tangible things that we look for, right? But then there's always this vibe of a city that it's just inexplicable, but then it just attracts you. But is there a particular reason you think why Cape Town was so like captivating for you?
Yeah, I think actually, the more you travel, the harder it is to impress yourself. And for me, I realized that the success of the trip or of your stay in a certain destination always depends on people. That's my opinion, actually. So if you meet great people, the whole experience can be just wonderful, because sometimes you can be in the best place on earth and still be bored, lonely, or unhappy because you just you didn't meet maybe the right people. So for me, I think what made Cape Town a great experience was actually the people that I was there with. And also, yeah, as I said, the city, because it had it all, like the beach, the mountain, and the city life. So I just also I like the vibe. I don't know, this is something that you cannot explain. Sometimes you just arrive to a place and either it has it or it doesn't have it, it's just like you feel the vibe, or sometimes you don't feel it at all. So that's how it was with Cape Town for me. I just got there and I liked it straight away, and yeah.
What do you think about the people in the co-living space so far? If it's not good, we can delete this part out, don't worry.
You mean like in general in the co-livings, or
now here in the villa?
Oh, no, everyone is super friendly. I think it would be nicer to have a bit more people because we are 5. And I think 2 more would be great. So yeah, I think I think we lack maybe 2 more personalities and to make the experience even better. But overall, I think it's a like a calm stay in general. Like the villa is amazing. It's super nice, and for me, I like it that way right now because I just have to concentrate on certain work at the moment. So not too much distraction is actually quite good for me right now.
Right. Let's, on that point, right, let's talk a bit about community, because the last 4 years you basically started, would it be right to say that you started your digital nomad journey with Wi-Fi Tribe? Right. And there have been a lot of these programs that has been going on since I would say almost 6 years ago, where I think Remote Year was the first to start it. And of course, Wi-Fi Tribe is now a big name in the space, right? But there's always 2 sides of the coin. One being that, well, firstly, you have to pay to go for these journeys and trips, right? So then there's the thought whether is it worth it to pay. And I think the second concern is about like, why if I move with a tribe, then I kind of lose a bit of the flexibility of solo traveling, whereas, solo traveling, you can go anywhere, anytime, right? So what do you think are the pros and cons of like, going with a group like this?
Okay, so the pros are that you just meet very different people, like a lot of just different people. And I think that really expands your view on how people are, their backgrounds, and also like what you can do in terms of business, because I just met like so many different people with the strangest business that I would never think of doing. And the great thing that you can also learn a lot from them, because especially so for me, as I was an entrepreneur back home, it's just difficult because I don't have friends that would have business back home, and type of business like me, small one, solopreneur. So they kind of would not relate to the problems that I was having. And then suddenly I met all these people from Wi-Fi Tribe who were just like me, running their own small businesses. And I think whatever business you do, there are some core things which are the same. So you still have similar problems. And that was very nice to be, being able to talk about it and share about it. And then at some point, people just would, share their stories. They will give you advices that say what they did to eliminate certain problems. And that was like very helpful for me, just to be able to relate and find my people in that respect. I could learn a lot. And I think also like it kind of made my personality much more, I guess, tolerant towards like, other nationalities, towards in general how people can be. You just not judge, not to put them in certain frame that life is only this way and not the other way. So I think it just expanded a lot my horizon overall. But I think like throughout the years of traveling, I feel like I got a bit tired of being within the big group, because even though people are great, sometimes you are quite, limited in what you do, because you're doing everything with the group, but you don't have the possibility to meet maybe local people of the destinations you are at, and just to have your own schedule. So for me, I think I'm a bit at the end of my digital nomad journey, where I kind of feel like I want to stay longer in one place and just be like maybe 3, 4, 5 months, and already be more like with the people that I know. Just have my small group. Of course, it's always nice to meet people. I'm not against that, but I prefer already to have that freedom of just being able to do what I want and not depend, I guess, on the group. So I would say like it was a great experience and I really loved it. And I think like I took and I learned a maximum from it. And I think like right now it's a bit of a different stage of my life at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's basically, it's funny thing, because when you travel a lot, so travel becomes your routine, and you start missing the things that used to be routine at home and that you were just complaining about it before. So just, having your favorite cafe, going every day to a certain gym or whatever you do. So just having the stability, which it's like a paradox, because you kind of try to run away from all the routine, but then you turn travel into the routine and then you start missing the opposite thing.
That's interesting. And how frequent were you moving when you were with Wi-Fi Tribe? Like, was it a month, a city, or what was the frequency?
It was usually a month or 6 weeks per city. But I wasn't. I would do like so they call like a month stay a chapter. I would do like maybe 2 chapters, and then I would travel by myself or with the friends that I already had from this group. So I was not the one who was constantly going with the tribe, let's say. Because for me it's a bit too much. I need to recharge. It's too much to be that much time with so many people. And right now I think I found like the sweet spot, like the balance of just the amount of time that I want to be at home and socialize with my friends from home, and the time that I want to travel and be with my travel friends. And I'm actually very happy about it right now, because I have these 2 different worlds that I managed to put into one, and it's functioning for me right now. Because before I was kind of struggling a bit, because you have all this exciting life when you travel and then you come back home, it's totally different, which sometimes seem boring, but I just like appreciate now both, and I managed to combine it. And yeah, when I need to focus, when I need to be like more calm and just enjoy a peaceful life, I'm at home, and I want like more adventure, then I go with my friends from the traveling world, basically.
Yeah, I think one of the one of the improvements around throughout the year for this program is that they realize there is a need to cater to different durations, because remote year started obviously as like a 1 year thing, you
Yeah.
had to go for a year, 12 different cities, 12 different months, right? And I think it was a good entry point just because that concept sells, because it's a year and it's
Yeah.
not a regular thought for normal people, right, to go for a year. Whereas I do think that it'll be way more difficult for them to have sold it like as a month in just one place, and it's a month program, right? So I think the entry point was good. But I think there was this discovery that not everyone wants to go for a year and with like, 1 month in 12 different cities, because as you say, it can get like tiresome for some people
Yeah.
depending on personality,
It's
right?
really depending on your personality, because when you are traveling with a group of people, there is always an activity from Monday to Sunday. And at the beginning, I was a yes man, saying yes to everything and doing everything, and that was great. But like eventually, I just got tired, because it's not possible to be all the time with that many people and do all that things, because back home you just don't live like that. So I think, yeah, I'm very happy that there are these different programs that offer different duration, but it really depends on your personality. I've seen people who can just like keep on going with all that group, and they can do it for a year. And for
Yep.
me, I know that maximum 2 months. Otherwise, I'm feeling I need a recharge. I need my space. I need to be on my own for a while. So yeah, it's I guess you have to know yourself, maybe sometimes try different things, go with groups like Tribe, or maybe try co-living, which tends to be sometimes calmer. That's at least from my experience. And then decide what's working for you the best.
Right, right. I think the offerings are good because ultimately, touching back on what you mentioned, the idea of finding a community that can resonate with what you do is important. And I think you see it more, especially also on the entrepreneurship side, which you mentioned that you don't find as much back home, right?
Mhm.
And there's always this talk about like the weird thing of reverse culture shock when you go back home for
Yeah.
many of nomads, whereby when people ask about your travel journey,
Mhm.
there's this thought that actually they don't really want to know about it because they can't really resonate with
Yeah.
your problems or your adventures. Like
Mhm.
they want to hear about it, but they don't actually want to hear that deep about it. You know what I mean? So when you start talking too much about it, you see their eyes start to wander and float because like they have all the other problems back home that
Yeah.
they typically face, and they can resonate with people who are living the same lifestyle. So
Mhm.
nomads themselves have a problem with like correlating back to like friends at home sometimes because of that issue,
Yeah.
right? And finding a community that shares not just the travel aspect of it, but also the business building of it is actually I think why these groups actually survive. Like there's actually
Mhm.
demand for this.
Yeah, I just also noticed that with these groups, just people open up much faster. I guess when you travel, you just at least I don't know. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to show my my not like my dark side, but my weak side. And people like they just bond faster, because you're just 24/7 together, and you are at the same pot where everybody is kind of willing to communicate and seeking friendships. So I think everybody is just more open than I know that some people I just know better, or I know more about them than I would know about some people back home who I know for 10 to 15 years. Because I think
Mhm.
when you travel, because you are exposed to different things all the time, you just like see the person in his good and his worst, and just get to know the person much faster. That's my opinion, because back home you just meet people when you want to meet them, when they are in the mood, and then you don't have to live together. So there's a side of them that you don't know, and whereas when you live with someone together, it's just like you get to know the person way faster.
Right, right. I think that's one of the main perspective changes, at least for your style of travel. When you
Yeah.
go with different groups, you really
Mhm.
see the diversity in people, even though these are all travelers. But because you're hanging around like almost 24/7, you really see
Yeah.
like the different aspects of it. Cool,
Yeah, and I
cool.
think, coming back to your thought that, back home, maybe people sort of don't understand you, or you don't want to dive too deep in about your travel adventures. So it was like that to me, because at some point I felt a bit bad towards my friends back home, because it seems like I'm living, the best life, going to the best places and doing cool things, and their life is just more steady and maybe not as exciting as it seems. But actually, you face a ton of different problems when you travel, and it's still like not all that rosy, it's a different set of problems. So I would just, I kind of not explain everything to them or not tell everything to them, but to certain friends who showed the interest and they wanted to know more, of course, I would share it with them. So
Right.
yeah. Hmm.
I think you just opened a Pandora box for me, because I wanted to move on to the next topic, but there's something you spoke about here that I think is important to touch on. And listeners who follow my podcast know I like to touch a bit into the mindset stuff. And I actually feel like I think a lot of friends see my lifestyle, or probably your lifestyle, and things that is super exciting and stuff like that. But I realized that that's not the definition of exciting. And let's not talk about excitement, right? Let's just focus on happiness, right? Because I always think like that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I don't actually think that they are less happy than I am, even though the grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Yeah.
You look at you're like, that's better, right?
Yeah.
And because travel is such a socially define thing as something exciting and happy, so when you see someone constantly be able to travel, and you're like, their life is exciting and stuff. But I look at my friends back home who have their family and have their kids. I actually never
Mhm.
thought like they are less happy than me, because I really genuinely think that they have their happiness of what they want in
Yeah.
life, which is having the stability and having the family. So I always tell them that I don't think there is a huge thing to be envious about, because if we tentatively put it into a measurement of like a percentage of happiness, I don't think they are way less happy than I am looking at their life. But of course, there are people who hate their job and stuff, and that's a whole other issue, right? But I
Yeah.
think if someone who likes their job and they're still working 9 to 5, and they have a family back home, I think they are actually happy.
Mhm. No, I totally agree with you. And it all comes down, it's just like getting to know yourself and, listen to yourself, to what actually do you want. And for me, like, I always wanted to travel, like that itch was always there. And and also I did my Erasmus exchange many years ago, where I lived in Barcelona. I studied in the Netherlands my master's, and I was always seeking, for going abroad and having friends abroad. So I knew that this is what I like. But right now, as I kind of build up my, now that I have seen so many places, and also I have all these amazing friends abroad, I'm also willing now for more of this stability and just being more calm. As I said, more settled. That's
Right.
where I'm at right now. So I think if you know that, let's say being in your own hometown and having a family is what you want, and you're happy, so there is nothing to envy about. I think that there are just different ways to live a life, and I
Yeah.
think not one or the other is the better one. I think it's more about just understanding yourself and where you're at in life and what you want at that moment, and just go for it. And once I'm also a person who I want to have a family in the future, so I definitely see myself being in one place, or maybe, because Lithuania is cold, so I don't want to be there in winter no matter what. but yeah, I imagine myself just being in one or two spots throughout the year.
Right,
Doesn't mean
right.
that I won't travel. I maybe go just for a week, like I used to do before my whole digital nomad journey. But yeah, it's just about knowing yourself and listening to yourself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that I guess the self-awareness is important here, and it's a lot about like, it's more like if you're aware and you're doing the things you like, is good. What's bad is probably you're aware that you are not doing the things you like and you still continue on with it. Then that's where you really want to change. But there's like definitely different ways to live a life that, you know, makes you happy. So as you get more settled, I know that you are also diving deeper into the remote work scene, right? And into kind of building more awareness about this in the Baltics, which is, I guess, apart from Estonia, which is obviously well known for their e-residency and being like fully digital. The other three, is it two more countries? Not
Next to
two more
Estonia.
countries. Yeah. So, which is Latvia and Lithuania, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm losing my geographical knowledge. So in those countries, it's not as prominent, right? Tell us more about it. Like, how's the nomad scene there? And what's the vibe of the people, of the locals? You know.
Yeah. So, Baltics have never been a tourism destination. Like it was never a number one choice for, I guess, any of the countries. So we're not famous for let's say for people to go there and travel there. But luckily, like we are like emerging slowly as destinations, and I see it like not from the digital nomad perspective but more from my work perspective, that people know the Baltic states more and more. They want to come there, so we are definitely getting on the map, and that's changing. And then but the digital nomad scene, it's of course, Estonia is a different story because they have this e-residency, where I guess like every nomad that I met, when I say from the Baltics, I'm from the Baltics, they're like, Estonia, because they know this e-residency. And I think like probably Estonia would have the best digital nomad or remote workers community, because also their tourism board is working towards that image. Whereas Latvia and Lithuania, I don't think we see that opportunity. And I think like with the pandemic, suddenly, remote work became kind of legal for everyone. And even though those friends who didn't understand me before, now they get me, and then they started also traveling themselves because suddenly they can. And basically this type of scene started shaping in Lithuania at least, or Latvia. But I think what's lacking still is the community. So for instance, there are several co-working spaces in Lithuania, but they are always more like towards the companies, like tech startup, creative startups, but not for freelancers or solopreneurs. You would find less people in there because there is no community. And as a solopreneur or freelancer, you always seek for communication, basically, because you feel lonely. So you want to have surround yourself with the same type of people. And all the co-workings that I tried, at least myself in Lithuania, for me, it always felt the same way, like business oriented, which you would enter. It's always a great spot, Wi-Fi is perfect, interior is very nice, but then what you're lacking is the community. And yeah, we are at the start of building it, but it will take years, because this takes, I think, certain knowledge. Also, we need to attract, I guess, foreigners, or maybe someone who already lived that life, in order to come and build the community. And building the community is taking time. It's just like when I spoke with you yesterday, about Bansko, who is totally not known for anyone else than the digital nomads. Because you ask a random person, where is Bansko, they probably would not even tell. But then in the digital nomad world, it's known because there was a person who just went there and created the community, and the community of digital nomads is big there, so people go there. So I think like the Baltic states still have to do a lot in terms of attracting digital nomads to come there. And basically we could, and this is not only, it's not depending only on people, it also depends on the government, because we could, for instance, start attracting people with like better taxes, right? Better tax structure. Or tourism boards also should work and form this image, which they are not doing. So just by trying to do it yourself as an individual is very hard. And also I think what nomads like, they always are chasing for the sun, which Baltics is not the place for that, only in summer. So I think that it's attractive for summertime, but not for time. It has the aspect of being fairly cheaper destinations, especially Lithuania, Estonia, maybe not that much anymore, but Lithuania, Latvia are still fairly cheap. So we have that advantage, but that with the bad weather most time of the year except summer, and also the community still being quite small, we don't attract yet that many digital nomads. But I'm happy to see that there are places that are there was a new co-living open just recently this year actually, and there's going to be more of co-livings being open next year. So it's nice to see that that movement is starting, and that people are expanding their knowledge about remote work, because I think before everybody thought it's just work from home. And so my thought, and because I'm going to be organizing like a remote work conference, which is going to be virtual, but it's meant for Lithuanian community. So I just want to show that it's not only about working from home, but also to introduce them, the whole aspects and the beauty of the remote work. That's my thought behind doing this event.
Right. This is interesting because I was it last year? Yeah, like end of last year almost, I wrote an article about how the COVID pandemic actually accelerated the digital nomad community. But one of the main downside was that the idea of work from home was actually a very inaccurate representation of remote work, just because one of the most advantageous thing about remote work is that you can go anywhere, right? It's the location aspect of it. The problem with work from home during the pandemic is that you're freaking stuck at home. Like you can't go anywhere, right? And now you get the downside of your boss or employer trying to thinking that you're always online, because now everything is online, right? So they will expect you to always be online like 24/7. And then they'll be like, it's the pandemic, there's nowhere to go. Where the shit are you going? You have to be online working, right? So they got all the downside of like remote working, which is like getting communicated 24/7, but they get none of the perks, which is like being able to go anywhere that they want. And a lot of my friends actually burn out during that time because of this work arrangement. And they were like, no, I'd rather go to the office.
I see it two ways actually. Like if I observe my friends who suddenly became remote back home, I mean, some would say, as you said, they started working 24/7 because there was no differentiation of a working space. You just but I think that wasn't just a working space, but as also because you just didn't have anything else to do. So you were in a way bored, and then maybe you think, okay, I will just do my work, and then you open your laptop all the time. And I think that's them probably were thinking, okay, remote work is really boring, and it's even harder because you work more. But I also have friends who realized that they can travel, and then once it was possible to go somewhere, they actually did that. Then they went to travel, and now they say hey, now we actually do understand you. And then because before they thought if I'm at the beach, I don't work. I think everybody thought I'm not working, or working maybe 2 hours a day. And now that they try themselves, they first of all, they saw the challenge that actually to work from a resort or a destination where a lot of people are vacationing is a challenge, and then sometimes requires even more concentration. But they actually embraced it. They loved it. And I have friends who now wouldn't want to go back to the office, who actually enjoy this flexibility and possibility to travel and have your own hours. And I have the friends who still don't like it because they think there is no maybe borders. So that's why also during my conference I want to talk about mental health and remote work, for instance, because that's also important. So basically teach them, how do you organize your day, and how do you distinguish when it's work and when it's not work. Because I think their perspective is still very narrow on remote work, because it's just work from home, and there are so many aspects to it that I want to sort of, start discussion in Lithuania about it.
Yeah, that's important. I think is really creating the awareness about it, and then building a topic around it for discussion, right? And just now when you say the whole discipline issue was very funny. I was like imagining we were working at Jackie goes like steam room time, and then you're like, okay, it's time to go to steam room. Let's like finish up and just go. Yeah. Like discipline is definitely important, but I like that. And like you see, there needs to be a community builder that starts pushing everything, right? And I think Croatia has been, and we are in Croatia right now, and Croatia has been successful in the sense that, like, yes, there's a lot of things that still needs to be done and built up in terms of infrastructure and all, but they did really well in pushing information out throughout the last year, and that's how Croatia actually got onto the map of like digital nomads in the first place, especially in the last year, because there's so many players and stakeholders that are like pushing out all this information about what they are trying to do, and then like doing conferences and things like that creates awareness. And that's why I was also saying last night that I'm keen to do a CBs with all the stakeholders that are involved in this whole thing, because Croatia has the same problem as Lithuania, whereby it's seasonal, right? In the summer you get, well, maybe not, maybe in the summer Croatia is like way more crowded.
It's longer.
Right. So their seasonal problem is more drastic because they get a whole lot of tourists in the summer, but then they get nothing in the winter. And it's not just for tourism, it's even like the local life kind of dies down because they are so burnt out in the summer. So then there's not just no tourism, there's almost no local life. The locals just want to sleep at home during the winter because they're so tired, right? But having someone to push the community seems to be like an important element.
Yeah, that's also the success, of the destination. And for instance, that's what I was thinking, like, no matter how much I would want to build a community maybe in Lithuania, but you cannot do this on your own. You need the support from the governmental bodies. And like, it's very nice to see the Croatian Tourism Board realized that there is a market, because it's basically an opportunity for you just to open a new type of, let's say, tourism, but it's digital nomads. It's a new market for you where you can also like boost some destinations, like let's say Zadar, right, which is maybe a bit less famous than Split or Dubrovnik for Croatia, but still very vivid, and just create a community there for digital nomads. And I think like Croatia in general, now with the introduction of with the digital nomad visa, has a great potential, because it is first of all, it has a lot to offer in terms like of a tourism. They still have probably 6 months where you can travel and enjoy the pleasant weather. It's not expensive. The prices are very affordable. The people are friendly, and now the digital nomad visa, they can really attract digital nomads to come here. And you can see that the community which is being built here of digital nomads, it's also being built not only by the locals, but also like expats are doing quite a bit of a contribution, which is also very, very important, I think, to have that knowledge, know-how, because you know what it is to be a foreigner and be an expat, and you know what the community needs, and you start creating certain events that allows the people just to get to know each other and like the community. So like these expats is very important. So there are a lot of stakeholders involved, starting from the government to just like locals, and also to expats that are here in order to shape that image.
Right. And you mentioned just now about, we were talking about challenges of remote work as well, right? So apart from discipline, what are the other challenges that you have faced personally, you and doing remote work?
For me, I guess it was mostly, I guess, the discipline, because you're like bombarded with so many opportunities and things to do, that, as I said, like at the beginning I said yes to everything, and I saw that my productivity was kind of going down, but now I think like the balance is like a key in being productive, because at the start of my business, I was working a lot, and I felt like really guilty of not working, so whenever there's like a holiday back home, I used to work. I worked at the weekends, I worked on all the, I don't know, like celebrations where you have a free day. throughout the week I would work because I just had that guilt that I need to work in order to be successful. And I at some point reached a burnout, and then I realized that no, it's not the way to go, and it's not how I want to live my life. And I'm a big advocate that basically, you cannot work 8 hours productively. Most of the cases, no, unless you have some deadline which is burning, then of course you can just work as much as you need to in order to achieve the result. But in general, like at the normal phase, I think like you are productive maybe for 4 hours a day. And I'm not saying that you should work only 4 hours, but this is your productivity time. So there is no point to I think I don't believe in 9 to 5 anymore. In general. Yeah, and for me, having realized that was very helpful, because I just combine certain free time in my day. It can be a Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, and just do something pleasant for me. I don't know, I either go to sports, or I go to some fun activity. And of course, not all the people who are working remotely have that luxury, because if you work for a company remotely, you still have to be online certain hours. But since I'm my own boss, and that's the beauty of it all, I can shape my schedule the way I want to. And this is probably like jumping to another topic that we briefly discussed. Like now I just so appreciate I guess the life that I had and I have, that I think it's hard to refuse that freedom. I probably still have that freedom, but less pay, and more pay in a big company probably wouldn't be a motivator for me if I would have to exchange it into the freedom that I have.
Yeah, it seems the whole remote work desire of people quitting because the work is no longer remote is getting like very real.
Mm.
I did a panel just end of last month with a group, and we were talking about this, and the audience was asking like, what if someone offers you 2 times or 3 times the salary? Would you
Yeah.
actually still turn it down to have that freedom of remote? Like, and that's always a very interesting like debate, because well, you can't really know the answer until it really happens, right? But
Mhm.
let's to sum up all the topics that we talk about with this thing, right? We were saying, I'm interested to see like, as the pandemic changes the remote work landscape, which probably is going to change the digital nomad landscape, because more and more people from the traditional work
Mhm.
office timings are going to be able to do remote work, but they might
Yep.
need to follow the 9 to 5.
Mhm.
How does that change the landscape, do you think? Because we did touch about this a bit last night when we were chatting about
Mhm.
like how there's going to be an evolution, and I don't think it's way obvious or clear right now, but there's definitely going to be a trajectory change towards it. What
Mhm.
do you foresee?
I don't know. I just see like I actually see that more and more businesses, they realize that they can be remote, where they before they didn't think they can be remote. They thought like it's not the case. So once they realize they can be remote, I think they also realize that it's not necessarily from 9 to 5. As long as your employee is producing the work that it has to produce, um, they became like flexible, I guess, with the hours. Of course, not all the companies. And for me, it's maybe a bit hard to speak because I don't work for a company. And also when you have like a big company, you have to match the timings of your employees. And that's why 9 to 5 maybe is important, because they just wanna, there are meetings and everything. So you have to gather people together. But I think like the first step was that a lot of companies just realized that, okay, we actually can be remote, where they thought before they thought that they cannot. And that's already the big step. And I think right now just people are I think like this society right at the moment, like in every field, is more about individualism and about finding yourself. And I think
Yeah,
that companies realize that if they don't give to people what they want in certain fields, especially like IT, where there is like a lot of talent, and an employee can and the person can choose from various employers, right? So they choose for the one who gives them the best, not necessarily the best salary, but also like flexibility in terms of hours. And I think that companies, if they want to attract the best talent, they will have to be able to offer flexibility in terms of, the hours you work. And I think companies that will be offering you to be on site won't be that attractive anymore if they can be remote, because of course there are certain fields where you cannot be remote and you have to be on site. But those companies who are able to be remote won't be that attractive. They won't allow the remote work. That's like my opinion. And I don't know, like if we speak about the whole digital nomad landscape and remote workers landscape, I just see it right now that with the pandemic, we just started having new generation. And for instance, the people that I know that already traveled for 5 or 6 years and more, they kind of want to be more in one spot. They want to slow back. But now there is this whole new generation who is now emerged with the pandemic, that they are those people who are like, yes, man. They want to, all the excitement and do everything. So we can see that there is like a shift now in the, basically, that there are generations already, I think.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, because when we were talking, about world schooling last night as well, that there are now nomads who start having kids, and they still want to have that lifestyle. So we have to, like, there has to be also things for that type of group who already have kids and still want a nomad. And actually, I was very happy to see that in Portugal, I think there is now co-living, which is for digital nomad families. So you can see that world schooling and like these, communities for families who still want to travel are emerging. So you can see that the digital nomadism is already like, becoming generational, if I can say like that. It's just
okay. Yeah. There's a few
different.
topics.
Yeah,
there's a few topics that you touch about that's like very interesting to dive deeper about. Firstly, of course, like regarding the change in demand for workers, right? Like what they want, that work-life balance versus just purely salary. And you obviously are a company founder, which means that you probably need to find talents yourself, and that kind of probably affects how you look for people and the packages that you offer, and as well as about the whole shift in mindset, which I always speak about, that actually digital nomadism is probably not the next big step that a lot of us in the space think about, because there's a self-confirmation bias that because you're hanging around with people of this group, you would think that, hey, the world is going this way. But I was always saying that that's unlikely to be the case, not at least in the short or mid-term. The next step I foresee always has been that step towards remote working come vacation, which means the mindset is not to venture for a year or 2 years or 3 years. The mindset has always been that, I mean, the human mindset has always wanted a settlement, right? Like you want to be settled in some place. That's the natural feel of it. Yeah. But there's always been this problem whereby at the start of the year, you look at all your 9 to 5 friends, then they will always be planning at like, what are the public holidays for this whole year? And how should I slot in my leave days so I can create extended vacations that lumps the leave with the public holiday so I can go on a longer trip.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is the natural progression for remote work that's going to hit the remote worker. So there's no intention to uproot their life, but there's the intention to like, I want to go somewhere else where I can work and travel, and so I can book like a longer vacation while taking advantage, obviously, of the length of booking and the time flexibility, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think us that we are like in the remote work on digital nomad space already for a while, I don't think we will ever vacation like we used to maybe before before the going into remote workspace. It's just because we've seen so much and we just used a lot to combine our work while traveling. So it's very hard to go on like a traditional holiday, I think.
Yeah. I think the mindset just changes like totally the moment you are like traveling for a long period of time. The whole concept of time in travel is just totally different from what you expect of like someone going for a weekend vacation, or like even a typical what you consider a long vacation it's probably like short, in our view. So that's the main thing. Yeah. I do want to touch on the whole hiring thing though, but then I think we have to do this separately. So sorry to the listeners, you don't get the juicy part of this topic. But let's close with like some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Okay, favorite travel destination and why?
Well, Cape Town, because it has it all.
Okay, cool. Three of the most useful thing in your travel backpack apart from your laptop and your smartphone.
Oh, that's hard because I don't have like these things like, I don't know. No, it's hard for me. I just try, for me, I just see like I try to be as minimal as I can, which before was not a case. And right now, I finally learned to be minimal and sometimes go with a backpack, which I'm very happy about.
Wait, so why not do this? What is because I know a lot of people have this problem of packing minimally.
Yeah.
What's your best tip about how do you pack minimally? How do you decide what to leave behind? What do you choose?
That maybe it actually, that's another passion of mine. That's like the sustainable passion, I think. But just buy clothes like which are easy to combine, like shape your capsule, and then you just take I don't know, one pair of jeans, two t-shirts, a skirt, and a dress, like which is easy to mix and match and then still look fresh and new and great. So I think I started learning how to do that, and that really shrank my amount of clothes that I used to bring on travel. So I think it's a bit different for girls and boys, because we women, we just tend to take everything while we travel. So it's important to reduce your just clothing, and also like when you are in locations which are, for instance, like very hot, when I was in Puerto Escondido in Mexico, you don't need much. And also you can just buy something locally and wear for that time, and just like maybe then give it away for locals. And that's how you can also travel with less things. I think that's a quite a good tip, I think. Just buy something on location and give it, don't throw it away, give it away to the locals, and they will still appreciate it. And then this way you also have less items to carry.
Cool. Yeah, I think the mix and match and getting versatile clothes is an important tip. Like I practice that myself, but I'm pretty sure it applies more to the ladies who, like, you guys want to pair a lot of things. Whereas for me, as you know, most of my stuff are black in color.
Yeah, it's totally different for women. But for me, my mindset is okay. I have laptop, chargers, wallet, anything else I can, and passport. The rest I can buy in case.
Awesome. Okay. What's your most important travel tip?
Okay, like maybe just be curious while on travel, be curious, be open to meet new people, be open to meet locals. I think sometimes it really helps to come without expectation and just like build the image about the destination while you are on the place. So I would say be curious, and actually I will recommend definitely to go at least once in your life on a solo trip. That's like a big, for me, I think it was a game changer. It's just like you get to know yourself, and I would recommend it to everyone.
Cool. Most important remote work tip. How do you stay productive?
I'm sometimes struggling, but I would say just, prioritize what's important for you. You don't have to say, now I can say that, before I wasn't able, but you don't have to say yes to everything. There is, if somebody is inviting you, oh, let's go to the beach, let's go to this and that party, see if something important you have to do it, and because there will be always an opportunity. So maybe what's helpful is also like to silent all your apps, WhatsApp, Facebook, all the messengers, Instagrams, like remove, like basically reduce the amount of notifications. That also helps a lot to stay productive, and try to also have the same rhythm, at least throughout like the working day, try to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. That's actually also very helpful.
Right. So I'm actually lucky that you said yes to the podcast. Okay, and I wanted to speak about this, but we didn't. But this is a concluding question that I definitely would like to hear from you about. Because of the pandemic, obviously your business was affected, right? Because it's in the travel space, and I know it was almost like draining all your actual revenue. So we didn't get to dive deep about it, but I would like to know, how do you get through it in terms of mindset? Like, why do you not give up on the whole business, and how do you stay confident that it will recover, or like do things to make it
Well, it was a very difficult journey, to be honest. Like when it all started, of course, I was like, first of all, all the cancellations and the refunds, and that was like a first hassle. Then nobody knew like how long it will take, and then initially everybody thought like maybe a couple of months, and I thought, yeah, maybe, well, if not this year, next year will be fine. And I had the savings to go at least for a year. That was really helpful for me initially. But then I started thinking, okay, so if I cannot do this for a while, what else can I do? And actually, that was like a difficult journey and path for me, because I think, when you run your business, you sort of touch on everything. You do a bit of sales, a bit of marketing, a bit of cash flow, but then you don't feel like you are good at anything like fully. You're not like a professional marketing person. You're not a professional salesperson. And I think at first I thought like, oh my God, I just don't know anything like profoundly, I had like that sort of fear. And I was always my own boss. And I think like, wow, actually I didn't even, don't know how to maybe manage a big team, because I never did. And there was like a big self-doubt. But then I started talking to my friends, actually from a digital nomad space, who were business consultants, who were also career coaches, and they helped me to boost the confidence, saying like, okay, you actually have, you have the holistic approach. There's so many things you can actually do, and I started like, I guess, believing in myself. And there are a lot of things that I've tried during this almost now 2 years. At some point, I was searching for a job and searching for side gigs. And then it's basically from, I didn't know like what should I search for. So like I narrowed down where I'm good at and what I like. And actually it was very good for me to have a clear vision what I'm actually good at and what I like. So now I can search for things more targeted than before. Before I was like tapping into dark and trying to do everything. I think like, but coming back to your question, what helped me to stay positive, I guess people like friends sort of, helped me in the difficult moment. And now also like I try to connect with my colleagues in the field, in the travel field, and I see that actually some others have way bigger troubles than I did throughout this period, and we also exchange certain knowledge. And now it's good to see that the travel industry is recovering. So I already like it looks very positive for me, at least in 23. So that's why I also I am positive right now that things will be fine. But also I guess like I needed this break to appreciate what I had, because I was kind of mumbling that, oh, my job is boring. I do this for 13 years. I'm selling the same kind of stuff. I'm not inspired. I don't learn anything new. And now I would give everything to get it back, because I realized how much I actually achieved to have that freedom, which I had. And that understanding is very valuable for me. So yeah, it helped me. I think this pause helped me to evaluate what I have and to realize that actually this is what I want to still do. I want to continue with my business, but also helped me to build all kind of skills, because since I was working alone or maximum with 2 or 3 other people, I never used certain tools like for remote work because I just didn't need it. I had my CRM system, how I managed, my team and all the bookings that we had. But I just didn't know about things like Asana or ClickUp. Like I knew about the existence, but I never used them. And now through these basically 2 years, while I was working on other projects, I got to know these tools. I got to test them, and actually I learned all kind of maybe more like organizational skills.
Right.
And now when I see that my business is actually coming back, I already have totally different perspective how I want to reshape my business, like how I'm gonna organize the whole work, and how it's gonna improve. So I think I just probably will come back with much fresher mindset, outlook, and actually new knowledge. And I always wanted still to do something on the side because my business was seasonal. And I'm happy that I got involved into different projects, which maybe helped me to find my other passions than travel.
Right, that's nice. It seems like you got quite a bit of a restart button
Yeah,
hit, and then
definitely.
like now you are ready to go again.
It was really difficult. I had like from stress and panics and and not knowing what to do till I finally, I think I reached the balance and the sweet spot, even though things are still unstable for me. But I feel much more confident right now than I was, for instance, a year ago.
That's good. If I could try and summarize what you said in the last point, it was firstly gratitude, basically
Yeah.
understanding, being grateful for what you have and realizing that
Yes.
what you have is actually
Mhm.
more important than what you don't, and everything else can be built back up.
Mhm.
And probably like I think what you were saying about the anxiety and like feeling not confident is about more of like not judging yourself too much. Like
Mhm.
you always feel like, and I have the same problem because I feel like I'm in the same position where I don't think I'm super specialized in anything, just
Mhm.
because being on the management role, you usually try and do everything, but then you're like,
Yeah.
I'm a jack of all trade but master at nothing. But
Yeah.
actually there are these valuable skills of like tiding through different obstacles that actually make sense. That is actually very, very valuable skills, right? And if you don't judge yourself, then you are able to suddenly look more practically into like
Mhm.
figuring out or listing down like what you could actually do or what you're good at, or alternative services that you can provide based on your expertise. And then now you can shift from a mentally negative state to something
Mhm.
that's practically positive in encouraging a practical action of
Yeah.
creating an outcome, right?
Yeah, and it definitely, I would say, as I said, like I learned a lot of new skills, but it also like it made me stronger because I think I received so many rejections this year, like in terms of just applying for a job or finding a certain like a short temporary gig or some other parts of life failing. So right now, a no is like, okay, well, what's next? Like it's just like kind of seeing, basically I see rejection as a redirection. That's how it is. If it is a no, you search for another thing.
Nice. That's a
But
good quote. That's a good quote. Quote of the episode.
yeah, I think that's what I learned through this year, basically, because I took a rejection like on various levels very hard. But now I think, yeah, rejection is redirection. You search for another window that will open up for you, you know?
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. Okay, so one last question. Where can people find you and what you do?
Okay, so they can find me basically either going to my website, it's www.baltic-breeze.com, or they can find me just personally either on LinkedIn by Ruta Dambyte, or go on my Instagram, which is the handle just my surname, Dambyte, which is hard for a lot of foreigners, but hopefully you will remember.
No worries. I'll put the links in the show
Okay,
notes.
okay.
So anyone who is interested in looking you up and finding you either for your services or for some
Mhm.
advice to share about how to tide through the pandemic when a
Mhm.
business industry is affected, that'll be nice, I
Yeah.
think. All right, thanks Ruta for coming on.
Okay.
I will see you for lunch.
Yeah, I'll see you for lunch. Well, thank you. Bye.
Bye.